Hello and welcome to Keystroke Medium. I am your host, C. You can call me Chuck because that's what the C stands for, Stephen Manley. It is the 3rd of August, 2020. I have no idea what season or episode number this is, but we are joined today by the one, the only, the bard of all things valor, Mr. Josh Hayes.
Yay! Bard of Valor.
And his very distinguished and very British writing partner, Devon C. Ford. We're going to talk about the Tranquility series and any other topics that happen to cross our very scattered minds. How you guys doing today?
Good. Fantastic. And if I might just say, ranks up there with the best of intros we've ever done. Just there. Got me serious.
Yeah, I'm just freestyling it, man. I'm trying to impress so that I don't get kicked off like I did last week.
Right. And we've had enough of Chuck. Goodbye. Yes, Chuck is he's emceeing this conversation because the topic is something that Devon and I are working on, and we're gonna have a good conversation about it. So he is going to be emceeing the show. If you have questions about Tranquility or anything that we're talking about today, post them in the live chat. Chuck will get to them. We are super duper close to 1,000 subscribers on YouTube. I think we're within 10.
Within 10.
We are within 10.
I've said this on my pages, so anyone who's not following the Keystroke Medium channel, you need to do that now.
Yes.
Right now.
Don't leave the show. Okay, keep watching the show, but definitely go and subscribe. Once we hit 1,000, we're gonna have a party. And I'm not sure.
Pull over.
No, definitely safely. If you're turning in the show for the first time live on YouTube, subscribe. And if you get anything of value, which is debatable out of this show, hit us a like on the show, on the video. If you're listening on the audio feed and you haven't seen us on YouTube, come and check us out at youtube.com/keystroke medium. And we do live shows every Monday, Thursday, and Tuesday. And that's my spiel. Go and like the show.
All right. Awesome. So what have you guys been up to this week, Josh? Living that boat life.
The boat life. So Scott and I, Scott Moon, we went out on a author's retreat boating outing on Saturday, and it was legit. I mean, Can
I just interrupt you there, Josh?
Yeah, absolutely.
Can we put this back on after? Can we get some subtitles up there? Go, boys play date or something. Continue.
Yes, you can.
We're definitely going to edit this in post. Oh, you know what we didn't do is the first comment clap of appreciation, which is Unity 151 Sci-Fi Book 2 has the golf clap of appreciation. Thank you very much. And welcome Lynn to the show. I don't know that I've seen Lynn, but welcome Lynn to the show. Good morning. And Unity, welcome. And everybody else in the live chat, hello. I see you there. I see you. So anyway, we went on a boat writer's retreat, which is interesting because before we started Keystroke Medium, Scott and I would always go to Starbucks and hang out at Starbucks and drink coffee and talk about our books. And every time I told my wife we were going, she's like, "Where are you going?" I'm like, "I'm going to have my writer's meeting." And she goes, "So you're going to have coffee with Scott?" I'm like, "Yes, but it's a writer's meeting. It's serious stuff." And she's like, "Whatever, you're going to go have coffee with Scott." So this writer's retreat was a very serious thing. We did not drink beer and float in the water. And
now, hold on a second. Isn't your wife in medical sales?
Yes.
And so is my wife. Mm-hmm. And I know for a fact that they routinely have coffee shop meetings at Starbucks, Panera, wherever they happen to be. So she can give you zero shit.
Yes, 100%. Yeah. So it was legit, man. It was really relaxing. There was no kids, and we went to a part of the lake where there was absolutely nobody out there. Super quiet. There was no wind, so the water was like glass. And we stood out, just floated and talked about books and talked about our projects, and it was super fun. I am going to
projects. Any progress on anything?
So I did a lot of good progress on Tranquility that we're going to get into today, and some news that I can't release until next Monday. but it's super exciting, and I like vague booking. It's super jazz hands, super secret news. That is probably the biggest news I've ever had in my author's career. And that'll be. I'll talk about that next Monday. So secrets and anticipation on that.
Awesome, Devon. What about you, buddy? How'd your week go?
Kind of a blur as usual. Not much sleep. Babies. I pulled 2 shifts in my day job. I have a very small part-time day job back in emergency services, but in a safe role this time, as in inside, with contact on the phone and not actually getting run over or anything like that. So pulled 2 shifts in the day job. Writing, babies, all a blur. I think there's been some sunshine. And what day is it?
Monday.
I think it's Monday.
Yeah, fairly standard for me, just between babies and everything. But it's all going to be changed soon. We got the summer. COVID restrictions are lifting for now. Hopefully, going to get out of it for the rest of this month, and then obviously build up to Christmas, and then my wife goes back to university after Christmas. So that's going to be all change again. So I think I'm going to have to start pulling night shifts to get the words down.
Yeah.
That's where I do most of my work, is at night too.
Yeah.
I was working until 1 this morning just because no one bugging me then.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
Well, all righty.
What about you, Chuck? What have you been up to, man?
Same old, man. Everybody's home, taking care of the kids. My daughter did some damage to her calcaneal tendon, so I've been trying to get her back into softball shape, and it's slow progress. Oh, poor kid got braces.
Oh,
She turned 12, and they got braces the very next day, so she's just been thrilled to pieces about that. And but yeah, I'm clicking away on the Jack Dark series. Going to get that done for Athon, and started revisiting the Brace Cordova, so I can finally finish the 3rd book in that one. And kind of the same. I pretty much say the same thing every week. I am extremely boring.
But isn't that just completely accurate for any writer's lifestyle? And we're like, what'd you do today? I wrote some words. What'd you do today? Yeah. I wrote some words.
But that's
did you put outdoor clothes on and go and see people, though?
Yeah.
It's the adventure part.
Even I've started missing people at this point, and I'm one of the most non-social people you'll ever meet. But it's funny because you talk about that just kind of being the same for, I did this, that I know a cardiologist that I was talking to not too long ago, and his wife was complaining because she never knows what he does at work, and he's like, well, what am I supposed to do? The person came in, they were sick, we put a stent in their heart, and I'm done. Everything can become a routine,
right?
That is boring, no matter how interesting it might be to people outside that routine. Because I got a neighbor, and he's an FBI agent, and we were talking, and he's like, you write? That's crazy. How do you do that? How do you make yourself sit there and do that? I'm like, you're a fucking FBI agent.
I used to think the same thing. Like when people ask me, when I was a cop, and asked me, well, what'd you do today? Nah, whatever. Yeah, I took somebody to jail and dealt with this over here, chasing a naked guy running down the street with a samurai sword, and blah, blah, blah. And that's every day for me. And who hasn't, really?
Yeah.
Well, I've been chased.
Chuck was the dude with the samurai sword.
I'm usually the guy with the VCR on his back.
I've done the UK version. I've done the samurai sword, but I've done the UK version of that as well, chasing a naked guy running around with a fence post.
Okay.
Fence posts are serious business, man.
Hey, look, the weapons culture changes this side of the Atlantic, believe me.
Yeah, but what about the narwhal horn? Has anybody ever?
No, they're probably going to be restricted. Give it 6 months, they'll be prohibited weapons.
You're going to have like a rash of people running around the UK with like just big catfish, and they're just going to be smacking people over the face with the catfish. It's literally the only weapon that they can use.
That's the beautiful thing about British law. Everything's a weapon if you want it to be a weapon. So if you use anything as a weapon,
though. I mean,
yeah. I mean, if you're having a pillow fight and it's all fine, but if you dip that feather pillow in the bath and you break someone's neck with it, then you've adapted that item and it's become a weapon. So basically, you're screwed at all.
Yeah.
Possibilities.
Just don't go for the headshot. Yeah.
Well, if I ever come to see you, I won't ever put my hands in my pockets because they're classified as deadly weapons, and I don't want to conceal them.
Okay.
Yeah, but everyone's just going to think you're touching yourself again.
I probably will be.
Yeah,
Well, I can't deny that.
Somebody's got to, right?
Good morning, Lou. Good morning, Rick. And Unity is in the chat. If you're in the chat, give us a thumbs up or give us a hello and let us know that you're there. And as we're talking, if you have any questions about what we're talking about or want us to clarify anything, just pop them in the chat and we'll try to get to them as we
Well, speaking of trying to be professional and stay on topic, gentlemen, what is tranquility? And I don't mean in the metaphysical sense.
I can tell you it's definitely not while we're writing, and we're not tranquil writers. I don't know.
Chaotic.
Devon, do you want to take the first shot at that?
Yeah. Bit of backstory really to where I was when this hit me. I've got a document on my desktop that is called. I built it up now.
Yes.
Half-cooked ideas and general shit.
What's it called?
Half-cooked ideas and general shit. And in there's probably 200,000 words, anything varying between like a paragraph to 20,000 words of a book idea that I've gone, yes, I'm going to do this. And then woken up one day and gone, no, it's gone. Well, last year, we had our little girl just over a year ago, last May, and we spent the first 4 months in hospital with her, having surgeries. It was a really stressful, chaotic time because we had our boy who was only 1, so we were commuting every other day, and really chaotic, really stressful time. And during that time, obviously, I get hit by this fantastic book idea when I'm already 6 months behind on everything else. Not in the right place to be writing at all. I get this amazing idea. So just to get it out of my head so I could get some sleep, I've written it down, and that ended up with like 42,000 words. So it was halfway towards being a novella anyway. And then I just sat on it, forgot about it for a good 8-9 months. And probably a few months ago, I was chatting to Josh, talking about projects we've got happening at the moment and what's going on. And I said, what are you working on now? Because you're just about to finish Valor 3. Mm-hmm. And so what have you got next? And you're like, nothing. And we've already thought about blurting out. So do you want to collab? I've got an idea. I sent it over and he wrote it down, shredded it, completely ripped it apart, came back and went, yeah, I like it, but we should do this. And I was like, yes, we need to do this. So really, I've got a 40,000 word idea, which has been now turned into a Haze special. We've got flow charts, we've got timelines, we've got spreadsheets, and everything is planned so much. You see, me and Josh, we were talking about this before the show. We have completely opposing skill sets. I have all the planning capability of an ADHD with cat, an ADHD cat. So my planning is, I write like 2 or 3 lines at the end of the manuscript of stuff to try and keep me on target. I don't plan. I can't plan. I'm crap at planning. But what I can do is sit down and belt out a ridiculous amount of words if I know where I'm going with it.
Right.
Whereas Josh, you're kind of the opposite. So that's
Definitely
kind of where we got talking and had a look at it, and it grew and it grew, and kind of generated a lot of excitement, which is being reflected by how quickly we write this book now. Because me and Josh have been having chats over the internet. Obviously, it's a bit far to commute to Kansas for me.
He does have a boat, though.
Yeah, I do have a boat, and so we need to have a tranquility boating. Literally, any excuse that I could take the boat out is fine with me.
That's fine. Yeah, visa, passport.
Yeah,
flights.
That's all. It's no big deal. I'll pay for the gas.
Can I make
I'll pay
it
for the
down
gas
back
in
in
the
the
boat.
day? Yeah.
Yeah.
So my wife's been like overhearing these chats we've had, and she's like, "You're like a pair of excited little boys." Like, yeah, we are. So yeah, I don't know, Josh. Do you want to do an overview?
So basically, yeah. So I was finishing up Valor. Devon said, "Hey, do you want to collab?" And honestly, I don't know what I was looking for at that time. I had a couple other projects that I had thought about doing, but nothing that really I wanted. I was just super excited about. I was still trying to figure out, like, do I want to do this project or do I want to do that project? So I wasn't locked into anything. It was probably fortuitous timing on our part, because if it had been a week later, I probably would have been neck deep in something else. And I actually almost said no. He asked me, and I was like, do I want to do another collaboration again? I don't know. I want to do a collaboration that is, I wanted to do the one that was more of a 50-50 than me just doing all the work and collabing idea wise on somebody else's universe, and some like my stuff with Richard Fox and Terra Nova, and then the Galaxy's Edge stuff. I wanted to do something that was completely different and new and exciting. So he sent me the 40,000 word manuscript. I actually printed it out so I could read it and make notes on it. I spent about probably 2 weeks reading it, and really just kind of
reading it means going no.
Yeah.
No.
So, so a lot of the stuff that I did, a lot of the notes that I took at the beginning were, why is this here and what is this doing? And as I got further into the manuscript, I could see what he was trying to do and see where it was going. And I knew what he had already told me, kind of the overview of the story. So I could see as it was developing what was happening. And he said, I got about 25,000 words into it. And I said, this is a really good deal, but I think we can make it 10 times better if we scrap this and just start over and go from this is our. So basically what I did is I took his 40,000 words and I threw it in the trash can. And then we started.
And really did do that. Yeah.
Yeah. We actually did keep the first 3 chapters we kept, and we tweaked them a little bit.
It was a 40,000 word pitch, and we started from scratch.
Yeah. But it actually worked out.
The ideas were still there, right?
Ideas were still there, but it was like
no.
the central idea that he had is actually still there.
Right.
The presentation of that idea completely changed from what he originally thought it would be. Okay. And even this morning, I brainstormed some shit that we hadn't thought about yet, and actually made it way better for the ending. So basically what I did is I took his idea and wrote all of this. This is all legal pad notes. This is book 1, and it even says book 1 on the deal. And this is all handwritten.
When that gets auctioned in a few years, I want half.
Yeah. we need to sign this. And but anyway, so I sat down for a couple weeks. And Devon's working on other projects too, but I sat down for a couple weeks and worked out a plot from beginning to end, the story. And then Devon and I had about a 2-hour phone call where we sat down and talked about it. And he said, what about this? And I said, yes. And we really went into the yes and method with this.
Right.
And really, like, he had some ideas about the different mechs. So basically the conceptual idea of the story is mechs with if you've ever heard of the game Titanfall.
Yeah, my son's played it. I've watched them.
So we took that idea of those maneuverable mechs,
right?
Instead of like BattleTech where they're big and clunky and like all that,
big exosuit kind of stuff.
Yeah, we went into like a bigger version of an exosuit that we call a rig, and it is a mech, but it is a rig. And that's how we're calling it in the book.
Not mech pilots; they're rig drivers.
Rig drivers, we set it up so that They could be extremely maneuverable. They're extremely in the rig itself is very module, so you can use it for different things. You can use it as a battle mech, or you can use it as a construction mech, or you can use it at different things like this. And so the idea of the highly maneuverable mechs from Titanfall mixed with some of the alien aspects of StarCraft, the Zerg in particular, and mixing those two in a very unique environment. And as we got that idea, the original idea was for me to plan it and then write like 30% of it because of my words that I could produce, and Devon was going to write like 70% of it just because of the words he can produce. And it's actually evened out a little bit more because we took two different POVs. He's got the POV of Lander, and I have the POV of Tally, and it's a husband and wife, and I write the wife, he writes the husband, and they're almost alternating POVs through the entire story. And at the end of the story, they both of those kind of merge together. And so it's we, from the beginning of creating, we have both said that we want this to be lore heavy. We want it to be, the further you read into it, the more you're going to want to read into it. We want it to be something on the level of like Galaxy's Edge, where we have just massive seeded lore into the books that people are really curious and excited about. And we've been doing, the way we've been planning these books is have one book outlined, but we have like 5 books in the stack for the main series. And then we have probably 6 or 7 novella ideas that we're going to use as
prequel trilogy as well.
Right. And so like it's a big, we're not just trying to write one book, we're trying to write a universe of expanding
you've got an expanded series already built around the core.
Definitely.
Story.
We didn't set out to create a universe for the purpose of multiple books, but the small world we created for Tranquility. And I think probably, without giving anything away story-wise, if you have watched Starship Troopers, Passengers, Aliens, StarCraft, if you've got a knowledge of any of those, you're going to find elements of this story that are going to be right in your wheelhouse.
Well, those are all big names, so I mean that's a pretty broad audience.
But they're all used for inspiration with the conceptual idea. But then this setting is based, I'd say, relatively near future, but off the back of a World War III scenario, which, without jumping forward and backwards in time, you've got the main series, you've got the follow-on series, you've got the prequel series, that all of it, because Josh can see the Matrix, all of it is tied together. I just see blonde, brunette, redhead. He sees all of it. So it's all tied together. So the bits of information you'll pick up in main series book 1 will just be what you'd think is normal character development, but that ties into 4 or 5 books that are just ideas at the moment, haven't been written yet. And we've ended up accidentally with this massive potential universe. There was never the intention to set out and do.
So you say that there's 5 books in the core. You've got novellas planned out around those, and then their prequel trilogy, I believe is what you said. Is that correct?
Yep.
As it stands, yeah. I mean,
are the 5 core books already plotted out, Josh? You're the master planner.
So I'm actually going to start plotting book 2 tomorrow. And it's interesting because every book that I have plotted so far in my writing career, by the time I get to the back third of the book, I change shit. Of course. And actually that just happened today.
It didn't just happen. We changed and removed a massive mechanical construct of the entire 80,000 words we've already got written to change the next 40,000 words from scratch. But both of us agree that's more work, but it's a better construct, and it's a far more immersive reading or listening experience this way.
So like we say, we're writing the two POVs, and we had a third element in the book that was basically going to be flashbacks to the Third World War. And it gives us some context onto Lander's character, but also at the end, we were basically going to have a double climax where we would have the climax of the present day story, but also the climax of the flashbacks would happen at the same time, and they both link together. And so we were trying to develop that flashback thing into where we seed it throughout the book. It's written in a different structure, and then at the end they both happen at the same time, and then you find out what happens to him at the end of the flashback, and then what happens to him at the end of the book. But an idea that we came up with just this morning, that was a really freaking cool idea, we couldn't have done if we left the flashbacks in. And so basically what we did is took all of them out, and now we're basically just replacing them with another structure, another POV, basically.
We could have left it in, but it would have detracted from the experience. We both agree that it would have been too much. It could have been confusing. It could have been a point that some people would have liked, but some people would have put the book down because of it.
So what I'm hearing is
that I have an idea. Josh completely rewrites it, and I'm
right.
like, okay. Yeah.
It seems like, and I think Josh touched on this earlier in a comment about it being very much a 50-50 kind of deal. Like, you guys are really communicating about what should be changed, what shouldn't, and it's not just somebody saying, no, do this. Is that is this all done in Google Docs? Do you shoot emails back? How do you guys work together, quote unquote? What's the mechanism?
Well, we've literally got 40 documents in this massive shared Google Drive, and the mechanics of it are very well planned out. Everything's separate. We know where it all is. We've got documents where we throw pictures and links and stuff for ideas, always putting in there. That's the mechanics of it. And it's planned. I can jump on at any time because we're like 6 hours apart as well, and 6-7 hours apart in time.
Yeah.
So it's difficult to get that. Afternoon for me is early morning for Josh. I can't do the evenings and wake babies up and stuff. So we do meet up every couple of weeks, max, to chat about it. And the mechanics of it, one thing. I think the other thing is the attitude. We've both gone into it too. We've both collaborated before. I've collaborated with Nathan on this trilogy. We worked really well together. Again, Nathan did the lion's share of the planning on discussion. We split the books pretty much in half word count wise, and we both had our own responsibilities. So in effect, I wrote a trilogy, but I wrote half the book each.
Right.
And that worked really well for how we work. I collaborate with Chris Harris, and he does more of the lion's share of the work, and I do the heavy developmental side in the world I've created. Me and Josh, we kind of from the beginning set it out. I do the most of the legwork because that's where I'm strong. He does most of the planning because that's where he's strong. So we kind of laid out the responsibility, which worked. But what's different for me in this one is, everyone gets a little bit precious about what they create. And I've got no ego whatsoever about the edits. Because we were talking about this earlier. There's one bit where I've written like a 2,500 word chapter, and I've gone into it, and he's made so many revisions that it's now 4,000 words. It's all highlighted, and like my computer's going slow because of it. He didn't just screw this thing; he rooted it, and it woke up somewhere else. It didn't know what happened, but it wanted to talk to the police.
Bite the pillow and take it like a man, right?
Yeah, exactly.
I may have gone too far with a metaphor there. But of all those revisions, I think I rejected maybe 4 or 5 of them because it was all right for where the story was going. So there's absolutely no issues. We're effectively, we are the book written by 2 people has got one voice because of the way that we're both developing each other's work. And Josh has to keep like tugging on my choke chain to get me back on track because I'm like, I'm writing, and he's like, right, checking the plan, I'm writing. Oh, squirrel. And I'm like, gone. Yeah. And he's like, no, come back.
Yeah. I get
that. Well, it works really well. And Google Docs, even though I don't really, I would prefer to write in Scrivener, but Google Docs actually facilitates a lot of what we're doing very easily because from the beginning, I wanted us to be on the same page, whether it was story or geography or like even the way that the rigs look. So what we did from the beginning is when we're talking about these things, we're constantly finding what is the closest description, what is the closest thing that we see in our heads on the internet, like concept art or whatever. Mm-hmm. And so we'll share all that in documents. And so we have literally a document that's all concept art from the internet. That's like, this is what that thing looks like.
Yeah.
And then we have a description of what kind of capabilities that this thing has. And we have things in the document that we're not going to use for like 3 books, but we have it in there. So we know that's where we're heading. Mm-hmm. We have some stuff that we're going to use in book 2 that we've had planned since we started planning book 1. I drew a map of the.
Do you want to screen share the map? Because I just think this level of art has to be shared. Just make sure you make it clear that it is copyrighted.
Let's see.
Don't steal this, anybody.
This is the preliminary map that I drew just so we could be on the same page with where things are happening. We've actually changed some of this. Let me see if I can get it.
Just to be clear, Josh has drawn this because if I'd drawn it, it would be stickmen and something looks cross between a penis and a rocket ship.
Yeah, I like to map out action scenes as I'm writing them to kind of help me keep track of where everybody is and where they're moving to. Yeah, that's pretty much it right there.
Well, you're going to build this up and then everybody's going to look at it and go, did your 4-year-old draw this?
That's pretty much.
That's kind of where I wanted to set you up and make you share it. So
yeah. So that's the map that we used. For
well, it's in color.
It's in color, and it's very rudimentary. But we had to have a base level of something to go off of, and
I actually kind of like that.
Yeah, so do I. It's on my fridge.
Yeah. It was like one of those things where you're like, "Hey, Dad."
Devon did kind of build it up, though. I was expecting
he did it on purpose. I knew he was doing it on purpose.
Yeah.
I did say, "How long have we got to keep it before we can put it in the bin without him noticing?"
Yeah, it's like one of those things where your kids draw, and you're like, "Dad, look what I drew," and you're like, "That is
one of those digital online like incarnate kind of deals."
No, not at all. This was the worst design thing ever in the history of.
I do like the little Met guy though. That's cute.
Yeah, that's a little Met guy. What's funny is I drew like an eagle, like a top-down version of the colony, and then I was like, I'm going to do a 3D picture of the whatever this is over there. That's enough.
If you want to know why the manuscript a day late being produced, that's it.
Yeah.
But joking aside, that helped. I had the plan written for me for the scene that needs that geography. I looked at the map, and the detail of that was enough for me to belt out, 4,000 words in an hour. So that's why the manuscript is coming on like literally in unreal jumps, because I don't have to think too much about where we're going with it. One of the just trying to like basically I'm bowling, but I've got those inflatable bumpers in because I'm just banging down the aisle there. Hitting pins everywhere, and that plan is kind of keeping me in check mostly.
Yeah, it's so this is the whole outline. I printed it out so I could do work on it. And the great thing about what we're doing is I can say I've basically titled every section. So when I go and I say, "Hey, this is going to happen between aftermath and sickness," he knows exactly what I'm talking about in the outline. And so I can say, "Hey, instead of doing this at that part of the script, if you want to call it that, we're going to do this." Like this morning, I came up with 3 pages worth of stuff that we had never thought about before that makes the story so much better, but doesn't change anything that we've already planned. And I can say, this is where I'm going to put that stuff in at. And he's like, yeah, that's good. That's good. That's good. One of the things he said earlier is the no ego thing. And we when we started the project, we said, we're going to do yes and, but there's also got to be a rein somewhere where we're like, we can't do that because of this, or that's good. It would be better if we did it this way. And he's done that to several of my ideas. I've done that to several of his ideas. And I actually felt bad a couple of times going through some of his chapters, because I was like, this will sound a whole lot better like this. Basically cut out like 3 paragraphs and put a sentence in there. And he comes back and goes, that was phenomenal. That was amazing. Let's do that. But then he does the same stuff to mine. And like he said, there's no
only outside.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. He's like, oh, I changed that. But also, like we mentioned before, is that we're coming from 2 different aspects of English as a language, and so a lot of things that he does is written in the King's English, and mine is American English, and we're marketing it predominantly to an American market. And to make it sound the same, I'm adjusting his English to Americanized English, and that is
because he's so out of touch with English that he doesn't realize we've had a queen for decades.
Honestly, who spells color with a U? I mean, really,
people who don't have to pay per letter. Us. We could go around the circles on this one all day. But no, we are. Right. I mean, I'm writing in this in effectively a second language, because there's a probably 90% identical issue. It's the nuances of writing in American English are quite difficult, but when you look at almost all of our TV programs, anything like that, it's American English. So there's a lot of crossover, but it's the small nuances. So if Josh wrote a character from North Yorkshire here, he would get it 100% wrong because they don't even speak English. So trying to avoid the colloquialisms, and a lot of the changes I make to Josh's dialogue are personal ones, because I've come up with the basics of most of these characters as part of the initial outline. So for example, there's one character who is AI, and that AI speaks in a very particular way in my head, as in so correct in US English that they're almost British, almost.
So when I write his lines, I don't even really care what he says, like, because I know Devon's going to change it. So I just write what I like in my head. I write what I need to happen, and then I know that Devon's going to go in later and make it better.
And there's a German character who that German character speaking English would have different ways of contracting words, as in they wouldn't. And they would speak grammatically in a different way, because I don't know if you ever spoke to a German speaking English. Their English is grammatically far more precise than any English person you'll meet.
Right.
So we've got all those minor changes, which on the face of it don't seem important, but in terms of the depth and the legitimizing of the manuscript, they are really important little nuances. And getting the dialogue right is absolutely key when it hits audio, because if that dialogue doesn't flow, you lose the attention of the reader. And it's something I started doing a couple of years ago, writing with audio in mind. Yeah. Even to the point where, I did this. I had a Luke Daniels release last week, and I was listening to a bit, and I went back and listened to it again. I thought, I am an arsehole, because I made him say cobalt blue bolts hitting the shields and making them shimmer. And I didn't think that when I wrote it. I listened to it and I could hear the anger in his voice. Like, that was take 5. He was kicking his booth and calling me
That is
names.
a bit of a tongue twister, no doubt.
And I thought, you know what? I am going to do that all the time now, just because I'm a bit of a dick. But yeah, so having that undertone in mind when you're writing, this is probably, out of nearly 30 books I've already published, this is probably the one that's got the most thought gone into it. And most of that thought's gone into it by Josh, but still. So yeah, this has got such a depth behind each character. So you could be half an hour into this book, reading it or listening to it when it comes out, and that character you're listening to saying the third thing, you just know full well there is 100,000 words behind that character already and to come in their own story, in their own backstory, and how their backstory fits into someone else's current story or someone else's current backstory. We've got one construct where two characters on the same squad have already met in a very significant event years before, and they don't know yet. That's how many layers have gone into this.
So we've talked about how you guys collaborate. We've talked about how you kind of created the world and all this stuff. So we've talked about the writer's side of Tranquility. Without obviously giving any tons of spoilers, what can the readers expect? I mean, this obviously sounds like mil sci-fi. It's got the mechs and all that stuff. But I mean, what is a reader going to find about it that's going to make it that gives it your spin? I mean, what is it that a reader is going to take away from it?
One of the things that I think when we set out to create is we want to create something that's very rich and is enjoyable as a book, but then also if you get in and you really like the series and you dig into everything that we write in the series, it adds just that much more to everything. So like some of the books that I've written, I've put in secondary characters that I like, but then didn't develop at all. And then people are like, I really want to know more about that character. And I'm like, I don't know about that character at all, except what I wrote already. And so we're actively trying to, as writers, think about what we like as readers, in a deep lore centered story. Because it is mil sci-fi. It's actually, the first book is actually sci-fi with military people in it, and they have military battles. As it progresses through the series, it will become more mil sci-fi than sci-fi with military people in it, just because of what we have planned further on.
Okay.
But then aspects of it are colony, alien, hive mind stuff, infections. There'll be potential for massive space opera spin-offs, and then more action military prequels and stuff like that. It's an eclectic world, and the universe we've created has got so many offshoots that are all part of it. But yeah, fundamentally sci-fi, mil sci-fi. But we've got cryosleep, we've got FTL, we've got World War III, we've got another space race, we've got an arms race. We've got mechs, we've got exosuits. So,
would it be safe to say that you described the first book or 3 or whatever as science fiction with military people in it? Does that mean those books are going to be a little more about, hey, this is the world and these are the people living in it, get to know them, and then we'll start hitting you with all the heavy military stuff?
It is, but we're also, we know the readers that we want, and we know what they want. Like, so Devon has a huge post-apocalyptic fan base. My fan base is predominantly all mil sci-fi, and what we're doing is trying to take the best aspects of both of those genres and put them together in this book. So, like, the military sci-fi that I write is very technical in that it's written for a military person, or it's written for a person who just likes that very technical military aspect of the book. We also have elements of the book that are very mysterious. There's a certain post-apocalyptic feel to this book because of how
survival mode sci-fi.
Yeah.
Okay.
And as the book progresses, it will become like the resources will grow and they'll level up in a sense and they'll be able to do more things. Whereas in the first book and even some of the second book, they're kind of struggling to even just survive in the situation that they're in. And because of, so Tranquility is obviously a long way away from Earth, and it takes, at the start of the book, it takes 2.5 years to get there, which is why they're all in cryostasis when they get there. There's time lags in communication. We had, like he mentioned, a timeline. I created a timeline that spans like 15 years from the beginning of the first colony getting there to when our colony gets there. And we had to have all that in so we knew how to present the information. So hopefully our goal is to expand this out, where it's going to be, if you like Mill Sci-Fi, you're going to love the series you're going to love it more and more as it continues to go. If you love exploration and First Contact, you're also going to love it more as it goes. We have a character that we haven't even, this character is not on the page yet, and what do you think? Like 60%, 65% done with the book, with book one. This character that that I'm talking about isn't in the book yet. She doesn't show up until probably 75%. But she becomes one of the predominantly main characters in the series down the road that does enormous things in the universe. And so it's one of those things where like we were brainstorming scenes, and one of the coolest things we did when we were brainstorming this is, what do we like to see in action movies and what do we like to read in books? And when we read in books, we sit forward, we're like, holy shit, what's going to happen? And one of these scenes is a mech fighting scene. And this isn't a spoiler, but the way that these mechs are set up, people sit in them. You move your arms and it moves the mech around. When they sit in them, they connect bio-neurologically to your spinal cord. And basically, when you hook in, your entire body from the waist down is paralyzed. And then all the movements that your brain sends to your legs is sent to the rig. And then when you move your arms and everything like that, you are moving the rig's arms and stuff. The arms basically are modules. So if you want a gun, you can basically shove your fist into this gun module. Crazy. It sits on your arm and you can shoot it, but you can also detach it and pick up something else like a shovel or a mining pick or whatever. It's very general, but so we have a scene. We have one of the exciting scenes we have is there's a fight. They're charging across this field. A mech gets shot, throws his gun, detaches it from his hand, throws it up into the air, and the next mech behind him rams his fist into the fucking gun, locks it in, and then fires. And it was like this big, like, cinematic scene that we're like, that's cool. Readers are going to love stuff like that. So, like, we have brainstormed several of those where we're like standing up cheering because it's like an Avengers Endgame level thing that happens, and you're like, that's so exciting.
So you say that the mechs are modular and that you can swap stuff out left and right, but is it like on the fly, or do they have to go back to base to get the different attachments, or how does that work?
Some of them are on the fly, some of them are attachments, some of the way, like our colonists are going there basically to reinforce the mining operation and the development of the colony that's going there. They're not going there as military people. And so their rigs, when they get there, are not set up as battle rigs. They're set up as construction and mining rigs. So there's actually, they're behind the curve when they get there. And then they have to basically like MacGyver, we call it MacGyvering the rigs, to do the battle.
MacGyver the shit out of the rigs.
Yeah. So instead of when they going in there with like blasters and 30 millimeter cannons and rockets, they're going in there with like a mining sonar gun that basically it's designed to shoot a sonar thing into the ground so you can find the packets of ore, but it's a big slug, and they use that as a weapon when they when they get there. But they're module in that the rigs that they have are designed off of a military platform, but it's like if you were to buy a military APC, but then take all the military weapons off of it, and basically all you have is an armored truck.
Right.
That's it. It's basically they bought it from the military and it's been completely stripped. It doesn't have the protection that you would have in a military battle rig. It's got some enhancements for the modular capability because of what they need in the colony. Some of it can be swapped out on the fly. Some of it has to be built into the rigs. And a lot of that will be as the story progresses and they gain the resources. In book 2, there's some other stuff that happens where they get other rigs. So it's set up. So like I said, you start at basically 0. And by the time you're going through the series, you go level 1, level 2, and you continually. Yeah.
See, that was originally designed in the concept idea. These rigs were, the older type of rigs were used at the start of the Third World War, and by the end of the Third World War, they had, a new version Mark II, because the mother of invention is necessity. So the mother of invention is actually war, because unless you've got a live scenario to test out new weapons, you don't get new weapons.
Right.
So these rigs have developed massively quickly over the course of the war, and the idea behind the modular thing was that their supply chain is orbital, so they get orbital drops of resupplies. So a big impact crater would happen, Halo style. They'd go over, refill the 40 mil back on the line, so they don't have to come off the front line to do it. And the idea, if they got damage, that they can swap out modular parts via resupply pod. Gotcha. And that is one of those. It just kept growing and growing. But yeah, because they're there. Imagine, or probably the best way of imagining it, if you go into BMW and you want to buy the new M Sport 3 Series, but you can afford the base model. If you buy the base model, all the shit that you don't get on that car that you get on the M Sport, that's your civilian mechanical construction mech versus your military one. So all of these things are optional extras that they charge you way too much money for. So they've gone in with their 316i. And they need to start bolting shit on the outside and using bits of ship's plating as protection, stuff like that. So they have to go full MacGyver with it because they're going up against older war rigs, but old guns fire new bullets, don't they?
Mm-hmm. So, all right, when roughly do you guys think this will be out for folks to read?
Well, we should, I would think, at the rate we're going, we should have it finished in 3 or 4 weeks, probably maybe 5 weeks on the outside. We're editing as we go. So I'm editing him and he's editing me as we go. And then once we get it done, we'll send it off for another round of edits. We're planning on publishing the ebook through Athon Press, Stephen Rhett.
Is there anything that doesn't go through Athon anymore?
I don't know. Honestly, they know how to sell books. They've got the connections to sell books. They have some great artists on staff. We've already been in talks with them about the look of what we want to do with the covers. And if we can get what we want, they're going to look freaking phenomenal. And
that's what this space up here is for.
You got your little blank spot there ready for it.
I'll have to move my Valor covers down to the second row to put Tranquility. So the first book is called Blood and Steel. Tranquility, Blood and Steel will be out maybe by the end of the year. We'll see, because I'm pretty sure we're gonna want to do either a rapid release or a close to rapid release schedule. So we're gonna have
back on release on 1 until we've got 3 almost finished, I'd say.
The thing I think we're going to look at doing is we have these novellas that we want to write with backstory. We may end up doing something early as bonus material or as promo material for the series, releasing some of these stories early. But we haven't really we don't have any of them written at this point. To answer Unity's question, it is going to be on audiobook. We don't know who we're going with yet, either what publishing company we're going with for audio. It is going to have audio, whether or not it's simultaneous release or after the fact. We haven't got that far yet. Once we have the book completed and turned in, we should be in a really good spot to say we've already got an offer from one company. We're waiting on an offer from another company, and so as soon as we get all those details out, we'll be able to go from there. But I think at the very latest, probably the end of the year, you'll probably be able to see book one.
Yeah.
Okay. Cool.
So we'll look on the comments. Okay. Someone hasn't clicked on the StreamYard link. Facebook user, who are you? Hello.
Oh, sounds cool. So a kick in the nuts won't hurt. Yes, that is true. That is true.
No, it may not hurt physically, but psychologically, you're still going to wince.
Yeah, you can't help it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
You know,
is that a Keystroke Medium mug, Unity? Yes, it is. Yes, it is indeed.
I've got mine back here.
Go on the website, get your own.
True.
Titanfall 2 was awesome. Yes, it was. Yes,
and Titanfall is like, I've played Titanfall 2. I love the action of Titanfall. I love the I can't remember who asked
development between the AI and the driver.
Yeah,
the pilot.
I think back before I started writing Valor, Steve wanted me to write a mech story for Aethon, and I for some reason I didn't think about Titanfall, but my idea of mechs is, like I said before, the slow, clunky mechs, and I didn't know how to write that story. I didn't know how to do an action story around slow, clunky mechs, and I didn't know how to present it in an exciting way. And then I got an Xbox and started playing Titanfall 2. And when Devon came to me with this idea, I immediately thought of the Titanfall mechs, and I sent him pictures and like trailer videos, and I'm like, this is what I want to do. And he's like, that is freaking awesome. And I think if we can pull it off the way we're talking about pulling it off, it's going to be pretty something special. I think. I really do. Especially if we can, everybody wants it to hit it big and sell a lot of books. If we can generate a lot of hype around this, and we can write these books and get the lore that we want out there and develop this story the way that we already see it in our heads, I think that it's going to be one of the greatest things I've ever worked on, like legitimately, just from a storytelling perspective. I'm doing things with this story that I have wanted to do with other stories, and just didn't have the platform. And with Tranquility, we can literally do almost anything, and it fits into what we're trying to do with the story, and that's really exciting to me.
Well, it really sounds like you're doing really all the necessary backstory work and world building and all the stuff that you need to do for that. Now, so I've always approached it from the standpoint of the iceberg. Okay. Little bit on top, that's what the reader sees. And then all that crap underneath is what the writer knows about the world and the setting and all that. I mean, are you guys fleshing this out to a degree that the reader will never see?
Let's be blunt about it. We're not doing this as a philanthropic project. We're doing it because we want to sell books.
Sure.
If people love the first 3 as much as we do, then we're in. We will pump out these books every couple of months because there is so much to write. So if people want to dig down in that iceberg, we'll keep doing it.
Yeah. And the thing is about the iceberg thing is, we know so much after we've been working on Tranquility for a couple months now, and so we know so much about the universe that it's in. Like, we've talked so much about World War III and how it happens, and we're not even writing that story right now.
Right.
We're writing.
Yeah, that's what I was talking about. It's like
some of that will show up. Like, we have a couple prequel stories that are going to happen during the war. But it's not going to be where it's info dumping. We're like, well, this is happening here, and this is why this happened. But we've talked about that already. So probably what you're going to get is, I mean, the amount of information, the amount of story that we've actually discussed telling could probably be more than 1,000,000 words. It probably is more than a million
Easily.
words.
Easily.
Because Tranquility, the Blood and Steel, the first book, we've planned at 120,000, and it's probably going to go over. And we're probably going to have to look
it's going to have to be edited down to 120.
Yeah, we're probably going to have to do some major cuts to get it to where we want it to be.
But that's not a problem, because with the major cuts, we can take the concepts and the parts that we're cutting, and they fit in other story ideas in that universe. So you're talking about, book 1. We've already got an outline of book 2. It's not mapped. Josh can start that next week. It's not mapped, but one of my absolute favorite characters in all of this has got 1 chapter so far, which is the rough idea chapter for forming book 2.
Oh,
As a major player going to come in book 2, who causes conflict with the new enemy, with the old enemy, and with our main characters that people like, because there's history there that's going to cause a conflict that doesn't get resolved by war, hopefully.
I think a lot of
I love this character, and she's barely even on the page yet.
A lot of the story that we've developed, I think, is centered around one of the things that I've been trying to do in my writing career is conflict. And so a lot of the ideas that we have thought about and want to write about is basically just extra conflict for the characters. But it also, in an effort to really develop the lore, to create these bonus stories or prequels or whatever. Some of these things we might give away for free. Some of them we might sell as novellas and then do bonus packs later. We don't know, but they're interesting stories that we have developed for characters' backstory that in and of themselves could be a really good novel or a really good novella. That's not the story. That's not the core Tranquility story that we're telling, but they're really cool stories. And so it's something where, like, a lot of the material that we're going to put out as bonus or novellas or whatever, you actually don't have to read if you don't want to. But if you really like the story and you want to read a novella, you'll read the novella, you'll get a little bit more about the character, but then you might find something that really ties into the main storyline that we're not going to point fingers at. If you read it and you're like, oh, that's that thing.
Right.
But if they don't read it and they just read the main storyline, they're not losing anything. But if they read it,
if they want to go down that rabbit hole, it's there.
Yeah. They'll get a little bit of backstory on a character that we're focusing on for that novella. They'll get something that points to the main storyline that gives them just that much more of a holy crap, or that's super cool. That's where that came from. That's what we're trying to do with the other material, and not just pump a whole bunch of underneath the iceberg stuff. It's really cool stories.
That's kind of what I was getting at, is that if you guys know and understand and have sort of built the under the iceberg stuff, you can drop those little hints that the readers will kind of latch onto and want to know more. And I think that if you do that as a writer, it helps to, as long as you've got that big under the iceberg stuff, you've always got more stories to tell.
Absolutely.
And that you can surprise the reader with and throw it. And I just wondered how in depth your world building and your planning had gone out, because it sounds like you guys are really, if this catches on, like you say, you're on the cusp of something big. So that's cool.
In terms of world building, this is, magnitude tenfold bigger than anything I've ever planned before. Any storyline I've ever ended up with. This is huge. But
I think readers like that. I think they like when they get the feeling that the writer has a much bigger world in their head than they've actually shown to them yet. I think that keeps readers engaged.
Yeah, in effect, we're actually, I know it's never been done before in the history of anything literary. We're actually starting with, if you like, let's call it episode 4, 5, and 6. And then we'll go back and do some stuff before that, and then we can go on to stuff that happens after that. And then we've got all these things happening off on the side. It's really brave. It's never been done before.
You are a trailblazer, Devon. Both of you are.
Absolutely.
You should be proud.
So I know we're running a little over, but I just want to say, in comparison, this project, like Edge of Valor was my first solo venture. It's the book I was most excited about to write in my career so far. It's my favorite book, I think, so far. and then the series, obviously, I love. But this series, the planning that has gone into this series and the world building for this series kicks Valor out of the water. Like it really, Valor the first book took me 6 years to write, but I was I was a growing author. I was still kind of figuring out what I wanted to do. I did a lot of planning for it, but I did a lot of planning for just the book, just the plot of the book. I did a lot of planning for. So for Tranquility, yes, I'm doing a lot of the plot planning and figuring out A, B, and C and how to get there. But at the same time, we're doing constant world building and how to grow the universe. And I didn't do that for Valor. And so this actually is a bigger project for me, even though we've been working on it for just 2 months. It's turned into a project that's just dwarfed anything that I've ever worked on before. And it's super exciting.
All my other series put together.
Yeah, you guys are taking this to the epic scale.
And what?
We figured if we're going to jump in, we're going to jump in and go big. Instead of testing the waters, we're just going to jump in and go big. And I think, taking the aspect of it, we're going to write the best thing that we have ever written in our lives and do it the best that we can, and just go all in, feet first on it.
What I want out of this is I'm big on characterization. I'm big on people reading those characters and really understanding them, people getting to know them, not just being, oh, there's Bob. As you know, Bob, blah, 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 blah. And then the backstory. They're going to come in, like this one character comes in, and all he does is abuse people. He's a bit of a dick. He sounds like he's stupid. He's just a blunt instrument. And I already love this character so much. I want to take him out for beers, but you've got to take 3 other friends because he's going to get drunk and try and punch a horse or something. And this guy's an absolute dickhead. But you definitely want him on your side. And I love this character, and I want people to read it. I want them to love this character so much that they go to our website and get the T-shirt, with something on it that this idiot says.
Yeah,
that's how much I want people to be invested in these characters.
Of Doom.
And that character is 1% of half the backstory. They're such a tiny part of everything, but they're a huge part of each book.
Yeah,
and that characterization we're building, and like I just said, so excited about this for the size and the scale of it, and the fact that we're both enjoying what we're doing. So when we're working on Tranquility, it doesn't feel like work. It feels like 2 grown-up little boys having fun and talking geeky shit together.
It's true.
And then it's like our planning meetings. They're like, oh, and what about this? And one of us is like, oh, yeah, oh, and we can do this, and we can do this. And we're like,
yeah, we should record those and then save them for later.
We should, yeah. We should also be embarrassed, but we're not.
Yeah.
Well, it sounds like you're on the right track with the whole character thing, because I think when everybody talks about things they love, they talk about the characters in them that they love and the things those characters said and did. So, guys, best of luck. Look forward to it coming out. Josh, what do we got Thursday on the Writer's Journey?
I honestly don't know. I don't know. I haven't seen the calendar. But I do know that they're going to have a show this Thursday. That's 8 p.m. Central. Walt Robillard will be Coffee and Concepts tomorrow at 7:30-ish on the channel. If you have not subscribed, please do so. We're super close to 1,000. If you liked this video, please share it and give it a thumbs up. That helps us get visibility on the YouTube. Every like helps, and it's just a little click. And then subscribe and share it around, and we would really appreciate it. And yeah, that's it. We're going to come back next week. I'm not sure what we have next week. We'll figure it out. And I don't know that we ever know what we're going to do, but definitely you're going to want to come back and hang out with us, because we're going to talk about reading. We're going to talk about writing, and of course, everything in between right here on Keystroke Medium.
Later, folks.
See you guys.